All right, hello again, golf enthusiasts. Tom Howell, 17-year teaching professional, certified personal coach with Golf Tech, brought to you by Mahalo.com. If you've been watching some of our segments, thanks. That was you. Awesome. Appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit today about pitching. We just did a segment about chipping. A lot of the times I'm asked, Tom, what's the difference between chipping and pitching? It's not so much about distance. It can be distance related, but it's really about the trajectory of the shot. It's actually the shape of shot itself. A chip shot is generally a shot that you're going to cover the distance from where your ball lies to the hole. You're going to cover the majority of that distance by bouncing and rolling the ball along the ground. Often referred to as a bump and run shot. Very, very popular in British Open golf, where it's hard, firm, fast, windy conditions. You don't want to throw the ball up in the air too much because the wind can actually have a negative effect on it. And then pitch shots are those shots where you lob the ball from where your ball currently lies. You're going to lob it up into the air. You're going to get up higher in the air. You might have a pitch and run. You might have a wedge shot, 30, 40, 50-yard wedge shot that just hits and stops. You see a lot of great players in the PGA Tour do this. So we're going to talk about the basics of pitching right now. So as we pan down, we're going to talk a little bit about how to hold the golf club first of all. And we've talked a little bit about this with chipping as well. You can just take your regular full swing grip. You don't have to grip it differently. Just a grip is a full swing grip here will be just fine. And it's interesting because a pitch shot is actually a smaller version of a full swing. If you wanted a little bit more about that, visit us at golftech.com and set an appointment. We'll be happy to help you out. But a pitch shot basics, unlike chipping, we're going to put the ball way back in our stance or just inside the right foot to make sure and ensure that we really make sure we hit down on the golf ball. Another reason we put it back in our stance like that is to de-loft the golf club, which keeps the ball lower to the ground. So if putting it back in my stance de-lofts the club and keeps it lower to the ground, well then why don't I just put it a little bit further forward in my stance, maybe a little bit more in the middle to make effective use of the loft of the golf club. Now I've got my Callaway 55-degree wedge here in my hand. Now playing a pitch shot, I'm going to start off with a baseline. I'm going to play the ball a little bit more right smack dab in the middle of my stance or kind of off my sternum and maybe even a little bit more forward than that. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. We're not talking this much or this much, all right? So middle, maybe slightly forward. Usually probably going to choke down on the golf club. From the side you can see I've got a lot of space in that grip. I'm really choking down on the golf club to get a little bit more control. But the impact fundamentals of a pitch shot are extremely similar to that of a full swing. We want to make sure that the club head is going to strike downward onto the golf ball and take a little bit of a divot to ensure that the loft of the golf club is actually going to get the ball up in the air. This is the biggest thing I see with golfers in general and amateurs in general, is not trusting the club, is not trusting that hitting down on the golf ball with forward shaft lean is actually going to get the ball up in the air. So often I see golfers doing things like lifting, trying to help the ball up, or I hear this terminology a lot, of trying to get the club under the ball. Newsflash, you don't want to get the club under the golf ball. You don't want the club to scoop under the ball. The only time you really want that to happen is in a bunker shot. That's a totally different segment, totally different day. So setup fundamentals here. With a chip shot, we were setting up with really close to the ball so our hands hang pretty low, almost directly underneath the shoulders, and there's very little space between my hands and my body. With a chip shot, I'm actually going to get get the arms out away just a little bit because I'm going to create a little bit of a bigger swing. So just a little further away, ball a little bit more in the middle, and then notice the width of my stance is still quite forward. I apologize, this probably looks a little bit better for ball position right here. So ball a little bit more in the middle of my stance. Now, weight distribution is still going to be a little bit more to my left side, and I'm going to keep my weight on the left side. Having your weight on your left side as you swing the golf club down through impact will help ensure that the club head is going to strike in a downward or descending angle, letting the loft of the golf club do its job, which is to launch the ball up into the air. Now, the length of swing or how hard you want to hit this shot is completely dependent on where you're at, on your terrain, and you're throwing it higher or lower, or pitching or running. But here's some good baseline to start off with. Ball middle. Feet just a little bit less than shoulder width apart. Choke down on the club a couple of inches. Keep the club face square. Don't play around with opening the club or closing the club yet until you get proficient with a basic pitch shot. Club face square, ball more in the middle of the stance, arms and hands out in front of the shoulders just a little bit, weight on the left side, and then the length of swing is going to be a 9 o'clock length backswing, basically swinging the left arm parallel to the ground. If my head is 12 o'clock, my feet are 6 o'clock, I'm going to swing to a 9 o'clock position right here and then rotate my core and rotate my body to swing the arms through, then the club head strike downward onto the golf ball and following through. We're going to step into one of our bays over at Golf Tech now and take a look at some action shots. Okay, so pitching. Whether you're going to use I'm going to use a 55, whether you use a 60, a 55, a 52, even just a standard pitching wedge, 48-degree pitching wedge, technique is pretty much the same. The club selection is going to depend on trajectory and distance, really. I'd strongly recommend getting used to one of your wedges and get really, really comfortable with one of your wedges from a technique standpoint. Master that technique and then use that same technique with your different clubs and basically just trial and error and see how far you hit them. We're going to be talking about a basic just 9 o'clock swing is what we're talking about here today. And the differences between the chip and the pitch is that chip was lined up much further back in the stance, just inside the back foot, which keeps the handle way forward and de-lofts the golf club. The more forward you press the handle, the less loft you're going to have, and that's what keeps the chip shot so low to the ground. With a pitch shot, we're going to be a little more in the middle of the stance, but still going to open the stance up slightly. I'm not going to be standing with my feet parallel or perpendicular to my line. I'm going to be opening them up slightly to allow for hip movement, hip rotation through impact. Ball a little bit more forward, more in the middle, maybe slightly forward in the stance. And my hands, unlike a chip where I'm right underneath my shoulders with my hands, I'm going to be out in front of the body just a little bit to create a little bit of room to swing on through. Still going to keep the weight on the left side, not with a big lean, but with a little bit of a shift of the hips. When I'm shifting my hips forward, it gets me to set on my left side, and I'm going to keep my weight on that left side as I make my swing. Keeping the weight forward, hands are slightly forward, club head square to my intended target. There's going to be two basic ways that I'm going to hit a pitch shot. I'm going to do the hinge and hold, where I'm keeping the loft of the club open. It's going to get the ball up in the air. It's going to land a little softer and won't roll out as much. So a little bit of a hinge and hold type of shot. See the ball pops up in the air pretty quickly, keeping the loft of the golf club open. Gets the ball up, might spin a little bit more, but really going to land quite soft. The other is the hinge and release. Now when I release, what I'm doing is rotating the club face, rotating my forearms over one another. This creates more club head speed. Okay, it's the same thing you do in a full swing, really. But when you're doing a release and a pitch shot, expect the ball to run out more. All right, so pick your spot you want to land the ball and let it run from there. So I hit and release. I'm going to take it back and hinge it, and then just let the toe of the club, or actually allow the swing weight of the toe of the club to shut through the hitting area. Pretty accurate shot, hit my target. All right, cool. Well, we had a couple little pitch shots we hit there in the bay. Talk a little bit about the trajectory, the impact, how the ball spins, and how to hit a hold-on pitch shot, and how to hit a release pitch shot. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the game, talk a little bit more about how pitch shots and full swing are extremely similar. If you just want to lower your scores, hit the ball further, whatever it might be, look us up at golftech.com. That's GOLFTEC.com. We have 146 improvement centers throughout the country, over 400 certified professionals. We're literally the largest and most successful golf instruction company in the world, and the reason being is that everything that we do is fact-based. We're going to customize something for you. If you want to see a little bit more about the how-to aspect of these videos, send a request to requests@mahalo.com or just log on to their website at mahalo.com. Pretty cool site. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you very, very soon for our next segment. Take care.